A person like you should not belong in first class." The words rang out across the airport like a cold knife. Hundreds of eyes turned to him, as if his existence were a mistake that needed to be publicly rectified. They snatched the first-class ticket from his hands like evidence, each suspicious sentence raining down like accusation. But in the midst of that storm of humiliation, no one paid attention to his gaze, silent and calculating, because he was not as simple as they imagined. And in just a few minutes, their complacent world would begin to collapse. 2 hours earlier, Marcus arrives at Chicago O'Hare via black sedan. No entourage, just a simple leather briefcase. The driver offers to wait, but Marcus waves him away with practiced efficiency. He moves through the premium check-in counter, where Agent Kelly hesitates while scanning his first-class ticket. "Let me just verify this with my supervisor," Kelly mutters, her fingers hovering over the keyboard like she's defusing a bomb. Marcus waits patiently, observing everything with the sharp eyes of someone who's seen this performance before. Fellow passengers in similar business attire breeze through adjacent counters, while Kelly makes 3 separate phone calls about his perfectly valid ticket. At security, despite his clear membership and pre-check credentials, Marcus gets randomly selected for additional screening. The Transportation Security Administration agent requests his identification multiple times, studying it with forensic intensity. A businessman behind him taps his foot impatiently, while Marcus endures an extended pat-down that serves no security purpose. He reaches the gate area 90 minutes early. Selecting a quiet corner near the window, his laptop displays complex financial charts, airline industry data that would make most executives weep. Other first-class passengers notice him immediately, exchanging whispered conversations and suspicious glances like he's carrying explosives instead of quarterly reports. Gate agent Janet Morrison arrives for her shift change, immediately spotting Marcus from across the terminal. She exchanges knowing looks with her colleague, the kind of silent communication that speaks volumes about company culture. 20 years in the industry have taught Janet exactly who belongs where, and this passenger doesn't fit her narrow definition of first-class material. Janet begins her pre-boarding announcements with practiced authority, deliberately skipping the first-class boarding call when she sees Marcus approaching the podium. Her eyes narrow as he moves closer, his boarding pass ready, his demeanor professional and calm. From Janet's perspective, this situation requires immediate correction. She's been recently demoted from international routes after a company restructuring she blames on diversity initiatives. This passenger represents everything wrong with modern aviation. People getting seats they haven't earned, disrupting the natural order she's spent decades maintaining. Janet has no idea she's about to pick a fight with the wrong passenger. Marcus approaches during the first-class boarding announcement, his movements deliberate and unhurried. Janet immediately positions herself like a fortress gate, blocking his path with theatrical authority. "Excuse me, this is for first-class passengers only," she announces, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Marcus politely extends his boarding pass, the plastic crinkling slightly in the terminal's recycled air. Janet scrutinizes it like she's examining a suspected forgery, turning it over multiple times and holding it up to the fluorescent lighting. "Where exactly did you get this ticket?" she demands. "I purchased it through corporate travel," Marcus responds, his voice steady and professional. Janet calls over Supervisor Rick Coleman with an urgent wave. Rick approaches with the swagger of middle management, immediately sizing up the situation with practiced skepticism. "What company?" Rick presses, crossing his arms. "Airlines Consulting," Marcus answers truthfully, though the irony isn't lost on him. Janet insists on seeing additional identification, the credit card used for purchase, and confirmation emails. Other first-class passengers watch the unfolding drama, some discreetly recording on their phones. Marcus complies with each request, maintaining perfect composure despite the mounting absurdity. Rick whispers to Janet with the conspiratorial air of school bullies. "Something's not right here. These types don't usually fly first class." Janet nods, emboldened by her supervisor's support. "Sir, we're going to need to verify this ticket with our fraud department." Marcus's eyes flash briefly, the first crack in his calm facade. The insult cuts deeper than intended, not because of its personal impact, but because of what it represents about the industry he's dedicated his life to improving. Is there a problem with my documentation? His voice remains steady, but passengers nearby sense a subtle shift in energy, like the moment before a thunderstorm. From Marcus's perspective, this represents a familiar pattern. Death by 1,000 cuts, designed to exhaust and humiliate until the victim simply surrenders. He's experienced this countless times throughout his career, but never this publicly, never with this level of theatrical cruelty. Marcus makes a calculated decision. Creating a scene serves no one, but this behavior cannot stand unchallenged. He chooses to let Janet and Rick reveal their true nature, providing them enough rope to hang themselves. Professional. Marcus makes a decision that will haunt Janet and Rick forever. Janet returns from her supposed fraud verification call, accompanied by Airport Security Officer Davis, whose uncomfortable body language suggests he'd rather be anywhere else. The entire gate area now watches with rapt attention, phones recording from multiple angles. "Sir, we need you to step aside," Davis announces reluctantly. Marcus asks with lawyerly precision, "On what grounds?" Security Officer Davis, clearly uncomfortable but following orders, requests Marcus move to a private area for questioning. Marcus refuses with quiet dignity. "I've done nothing wrong. Handle this matter here, in full view." Janet, emboldened by the crowd's attention, raises her voice to ensure maximum humiliation. "Sir, you need to move to the back where you belong. This ticket is clearly fraudulent." Gasps ripple through the assembled passengers. Someone shouts, "That's messed up," but nobody intervenes, preferring to document rather than defend. Rick demands Marcus surrender his boarding pass. When Marcus hesitates, security threatens arrest for interfering with airline operations. Marcus slowly hands over his ticket, maintaining steady eye contact with Janet throughout the exchange. "How did you really get this ticket?" Janet asks loudly, her voice carrying across the terminal. "Did you steal it? Find it somewhere? Did someone give it to you?" Each question is carefully crafted for maximum degradation, designed to paint Marcus as a criminal in front of hundreds of witnesses. The crowd grows increasingly restless, some supporting Marcus, others filming eagerly for social media content. Teenage passenger Maya begins broadcasting live on her phone, whispering urgently to her camera, "Y'all, I'm watching straight-up discrimination at O'Hare right now. This businessman is getting humiliated for being black in first class." Her live stream attracts hundreds of viewers within minutes, comments flooding in with outrage and disbelief. The video captures every moment of Janet's performance, preserving it permanently in digital amber. Marcus finally speaks, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife through butter. "I earned this seat through decades of hard work, just like anyone else here." Janet smirks with savage satisfaction. "Sure you did. Security, please, escort this gentleman to economy class." Marcus walks toward economy seating, his dignity intact despite the complete humiliation. Passengers part like water before him, some applauding Janet's decisive action, others looking disgusted by the spectacle. Maya's live stream hits 10,000 viewers as Marcus settles into a middle seat between a crying baby and a businessman who immediately claims both armrests. The contrast is stark. Janet personally greets each first-class passenger with champagne and warm towels, while Marcus endures economy's cramped indignities. As Marcus settles into economy, he pulls out his phone and makes a call that will change everything. Marcus takes the middle seat in economy row 32, squeezed between a crying infant and a businessman who spreads into Marcus's space with territorial aggression. The businessman doesn't acknowledge Marcus's presence, treating him like furniture rather than a fellow passenger. From his cramped position, Marcus observes the stark contrast happening 30 rows ahead. Janet personally greets each first-class passenger with champagne service and warm towels, her demeanor transformed into gracious hospitality for the right kind of travelers. Marcus opens his phone and scrolls through his contacts, pausing at several names that would terrify Janet if she knew their significance. Sarah Mitchell, Federal Aviation Administration Director; James Chen, Department of Transportation Inspector General; Rebecca Torres, Civil Rights Attorney; but he selects a different contact entirely. "David, it's Marcus," he says quietly, his voice barely audible above the baby's crying. "Yes, I'm fine. Listen, I need you to initiate Protocol 7 immediately." The person on the other end clearly knows exactly what Protocol 7 means because Marcus continues without explanation. Atlantic Airways Flight 447, Chicago to Miami. "Yes, the full investigation. I'll explain later." Marcus hangs up and begins documenting everything with methodical precision. He screenshots Maya's viral live stream, now reaching 50,000 viewers with comments flooding faster than the system can display. He photographs Janet and Rick, records gate announcements, and creates an encrypted folder labeled Atlantic Airways Civil Rights Violation Evidence Package. Maya's phone captures the growing online outrage. Comments pour in from viewers worldwide. "This is disgusting. Someone needs to help him. What's wrong with people?" Maya feels the weight of responsibility, realizing she's become an inadvertent documentary filmmaker for civil rights history. Marcus's internal monologue reveals his true perspective. 23 years building this industry, helped write the regulations these people are currently violating. Time they learned that consequences have no color boundaries. Janet announces boarding continues for remaining passengers, deliberately avoiding the economy section where Marcus sits. Fellow passengers, increasingly uncomfortable with the obvious discrimination, many approach Marcus, offering to trade their first-class seats. Marcus politely declines each offer. "I appreciate your kindness, but this isn't about the seat anymore." His phone buzzes with a text from David. "Protocol 7 initiated, legal team deployed, media contacts activated, board meeting called for emergency session." "How deep do you want to go?" Marcus types back with steady fingers. "Full depth. Make it educational." The airport's public address system crackled to life. "Atlantic Airways personnel, please report to administrative offices immediately." Janet and Rick exchange confused glances, their confidence wavering for the first time. Within minutes, Janet receives a phone call that makes her blood run cold. Janet's supervisor, Carol Jenkins, storms toward the gate with her face flushed crimson, panic radiating from every step. She pulls Janet aside for a heated, whispered conversation while Marcus observes from economy, noting how Janet's confident smirk transforms into bewildered confusion. "Janet, what the hell did you do?" Carol hisses, her 20-year management experience telling her this situation has spiraled beyond normal passenger complaints. Carol approaches Marcus directly, her voice carefully modulated. "Sir, there seems to have been a misunderstanding. We'd like to upgrade you back to first class immediately, with our sincere apologies." Marcus responds with polite firmness. "I'm comfortable here, thank you." From Carol's perspective, she's just received an urgent call from corporate headquarters demanding an immediate explanation for an incident involving a very important passenger. No details were provided, just a stern warning delivered with executive-level gravity. "Fix this situation now." Maya's live stream reaches 200,000 viewers as the story spreads across multiple platforms. Comments reveal people calling Atlantic Airways directly, flooding their customer service lines with demands for justice. The hashtag reaches trending status within 30 minutes of the initial incident. Janet, still unaware of the growing crisis, doubles down on her position. "Carol, I followed standard protocol. That ticket was highly suspicious." Carol snaps with unusual vehemence. "What protocol exactly allows racial profiling of paying passengers?" Airport Security Chief Commander Williams arrives, no relation to Marcus, and reviews footage from multiple gate cameras. The evidence is damning. Clear documentation of discriminatory treatment with no legitimate security justification. Commander Williams approaches Marcus with professional courtesy. "Sir, airport administration would like to discuss this situation privately in our offices." Marcus responds diplomatically, "I appreciate that offer, but transparency serves everyone's interests better than private negotiation." His phone buzzes again with updates from his legal team. Federal injunction filed. FAA investigation officially launched. Media requests flooding our offices. Atlantic Airways stock down 12% in aftermath trading. Continue documenting everything. Boarding continues as the flight fills with passengers, many continuing to film and share content across social platforms. The story grows organically, spreading through networks of outraged viewers who recognize injustice when they see it. Pilots Captain Rodriguez and First Officer Thompson review the passenger manifest during their pre-flight preparation, noticing a VIP designation next to Marcus Williams' name. However, they don't yet connect this information to the unfolding gate incident. Just as the plane prepares for final boarding, 3 federal investigators walk through the gate. Department of Transportation investigators Agent Sarah Chen and Agent Mike Rodriguez enter the gate area alongside Federal Aviation Administration official, Director Patricia Wong. Their arrival sends Atlantic Airways staff into immediate panic. This level of federal response indicates serious regulatory violations. Carol frantically calls corporate headquarters, her voice strained with desperation. "We have federal investigators here demanding explanations. What exactly is happening?" She gets placed on hold for 15 agonizing minutes, while the investigation team systematically interviews witnesses. Passengers eagerly share their recordings and provide contact information to federal agents. Maya's live stream transforms into a live documentary featuring real-time interviews with travelers who witness the discrimination firsthand. The comment section becomes a digital courtroom with 500,000 engaged viewers demanding justice. Agent Chen approaches Marcus with professional courtesy. "Mr. Williams, I'm Agent Chen with the Department of Transportation. We're investigating civil rights violations. Are you willing to provide an official statement?" Marcus agrees but insists on maintaining transparency. "Conduct your interviews here where passengers can observe the process." Janet finally begins to comprehend that the situation has spiraled far beyond her control. She attempts damage control with increasing desperation. "Look, I was simply following established security protocols. This isn't personal against anyone." Agent Rodriguez responds with bureaucratic precision. "Ma'am, we'll need your incident reports, training documentation, and a complete written statement regarding your actions." Corporate panic escalates as Atlantic Airways Chief Executive Officer Michael Harrison receives an emergency briefing from his legal team. Stock prices continue dropping, social media crisis intensifying. Federal investigation officially launched, all stemming from a single gate incident that should have been routine. Harrison demands an immediate conference call with all department heads, his voice carrying the weight of potential career destruction. Captain Rodriguez, a veteran with 30 years of aviation experience, approaches the federal investigators after reviewing the situation. He immediately recognizes the serious civil rights violations and makes an executive decision that prioritizes passenger dignity over flight schedules. "This flight is delayed pending full federal investigation," he announces over the gate intercom. Passenger safety includes comprehensive civil rights protection. The announcement draws cheers from many passengers who refuse to board until Marcus receives proper justice. The crowd's energy shifts from passive observation to active support for civil rights enforcement. Janet reaches her breaking point under mounting pressure, her professional facade cracking completely. "This is absolutely ridiculous. I was protecting the airline's interests. People like him don't belong in first-class accommodations." Her outburst gets recorded by multiple phones and instantly shared across social platforms, providing undeniable evidence of racial bias that destroys any remaining plausible deniability. Janet's racist outburst seals her fate, but she still has no idea who she's really fighting. Local news crews storm Chicago O'Hare as Maya's live stream reaches 1 million viewers worldwide. Reporter Jessica Torres from ABC7 Chicago begins live broadcasting. Breaking news from O'Hare International Airport, where discrimination allegations have completely grounded an Atlantic Airways flight. Atlantic Airways board members receive emergency notifications on their personal devices. Stock prices down 18%. Social media mentions approaching crisis levels. Federal investigation confirmed by multiple sources. An emergency board meeting gets called, with some members flying in from international locations. Marcus observes the unfolding chaos with calculating calm, recognizing each escalation phase from previous civil rights cases he's studied extensively. He knows exactly when to reveal his true identity for maximum impact, but not yet. Timing remains crucial for lasting systemic change. Janet's desperation reaches new heights as she realizes her 20-year career hangs in the balance. She attempts throwing Rick under the proverbial bus. He specifically told me to handle this situation aggressively. I was simply following direct supervisor orders. Rick immediately denies her accusation. I supported your initial security assessment, but this escalation and public humiliation is entirely your responsibility. Federal agents systematically interview passengers, building a comprehensive timeline of discriminatory behavior. Each testimony proves more damning than the previous one, establishing a clear pattern of racial bias rather than an isolated incident. Atlantic Airways Regional Manager Donna Peterson and legal counsel Robert Hayes arrive from Chicago headquarters via emergency helicopter transport. They immediately sequester Janet and Rick for private questioning, while federal agents observe every interaction. Social media explosion reaches unprecedented levels as the hashtag trends worldwide. Celebrity endorsements flood in from actors, musicians, and politicians. Other airlines issue carefully worded statements distancing themselves from Atlantic Airways' discriminatory behavior. Passengers throughout the terminal post support videos, creating an organic movement of solidarity. The story transitions from isolated incident to symbol of systemic aviation industry problem. Captain Rodriguez makes another announcement that electrifies the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, as pilot in command, I'm officially grounding this aircraft until this civil rights situation receives proper resolution. Atlantic Airways' behavior does not represent my personal values or the aviation industry's professional standards. Breaking news alerts ping across millions of devices as CNN picks up the story, featuring Maya's live stream footage prominently. The incident goes national within 2 hours, reaching audiences far beyond the aviation industry. Agent Chen approaches Marcus with official documentation, her voice carrying new urgency. Mr. Williams, we need to understand exactly who you are for our comprehensive investigation. Marcus looks directly at the news cameras, then at Janet, who continues arguing frantically with corporate attorneys. The moment has arrived for the revelation that will reshape everything. Marcus Williams stands up, straightens his tie, and says 4 words that will destroy Janet's world. Marcus approaches Agent Chen with measured steps, his voice carrying clearly for the news cameras and assembled crowd. I'm Marcus Williams, Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Aviation Group. The gate area falls into stunned silence. Meridian Aviation Group, Atlantic Airways' largest competitor, worth $47 billion, employing 200,000 people across 6 continents. Marcus Williams, industry titan, civil rights advocate, former Department of Transportation advisor who helped write current anti-discrimination regulations. Janet's face drains of all color as recognition hits like a physical blow. She just racially profiled and publicly humiliated the most powerful black executive in the aviation industry. Rick stumbles backward, literally speechless, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Agent Chen's eyebrows raise with professional surprise. Mr. Williams, you're the Marcus Williams who authored the 2019 Aviation Civil Rights Enhancement Act? Marcus nods gravely. The same act that Atlantic Airways is currently violating in spectacular fashion. From the corporate team's perspective, Peterson and Hayes exchange horrified glances that speak volumes. This isn't a random passenger complaint, it's an industry-changing legal case with the most qualified plaintiff imaginable. Hayes immediately calls headquarters with trembling fingers. Sir, we need the crisis management team and outside counsel, right now. Reporter Jessica Torres realizes the story's true magnitude, her voice rising with excitement. This is Marcus Williams, the aviation chief executive officer who revolutionized industry hiring practices and civil rights protections. Atlantic Airways just discriminated against a person who literally wrote the book on airline anti-discrimination policy. Maya's live stream explodes beyond all previous metrics. Her viewer count hits 2.5 million people. Comments flood faster than the system can process, creating a digital avalanche of outrage and support. Marcus takes control of the narrative with practiced authority, addressing the crowd and cameras simultaneously. For 23 years, I've worked tirelessly to eliminate exactly this type of discriminatory behavior from our industry. Today, Atlantic Airways demonstrated precisely why federal oversight remains absolutely necessary. His live stream response sends shockwaves across social media platforms. The hashtag trends globally within 15 minutes, reaching audiences in dozens of countries where aviation civil rights remain pressing concerns. Director Wong steps forward with newfound respect. Mr. Williams, given your expertise and status as the complainant, this investigation now carries federal priority status. We're implementing immediate protective measures. Janet, desperate and cornered, makes one final attempt at self-defense. How was I supposed to know who he was? He didn't identify himself as anyone important. Marcus responds with devastating calm. Every passenger deserves dignity, regardless of their identity, wealth, or status. That's precisely the point of civil rights law. Corporate damage control attempts begin immediately. Peterson tries addressing Marcus directly. Mr. Williams, Atlantic Airways deeply regrets this unfortunate incident. We're prepared to discuss immediate resolution and compensation. Marcus's response cuts through her corporate speak like a sword. Ma'am, this situation transcends personal resolution. It's about preventing systemic discrimination and protecting future passengers. Captain Rodriguez approaches with 30 years of aviation experience backing his words. Sir, I've flown for 3 decades, and what happened here today violates everything our industry should represent. You have my complete support and sworn testimony. Legal counsel Hayes realizes the catastrophic scope of liability, federal civil rights violations, public humiliation of an industry leader, potential class action implications, federal contract violations, since Meridian holds government contracts, and stock manipulation, since Marcus's treatment directly impacts a competitor's valuation. Marcus delivers his prepared statement with the authority of someone who's spent decades fighting these battles. Atlantic Airways will face full legal consequences for these civil rights violations. More importantly, this incident demonstrates why comprehensive industry reform remains desperately necessary. No passenger should endure what happened here today. Atlantic Airways Chairman William Davidson receives an emergency call from Chief Executive Officer Harrison. Bill, we have a catastrophic situation. Marcus Williams? Yes, that Marcus Williams was discriminated against by our gate staff. It's broadcasting live to millions. Stocks in complete freefall. We need emergency board authorization for crisis response. But Marcus Williams isn't finished. He has plans that will reshape the entire airline industry. Atlantic Airways stock plummets 31% within 4 hours of Marcus's identity revelation. Trading gets temporarily halted by market regulators as institutional investors panic sell their positions. Emergency board meetings convene via video conference, with members participating from 7 different countries. Chief Executive Officer Harrison faces immediate demands for his resignation from board members who recognize career-ending negligence. The discrimination of Marcus Williams represents corporate liability beyond normal insurance coverage. Meridian Aviation Group's legal department, led by Civil Rights Director Amanda Foster, files comprehensive federal discrimination lawsuit within 6 hours. The complaint includes civil rights violations, intentional infliction of emotional distress, corporate negligence, and punitive damages exceeding $100 million. Department of Transportation Inspector General James Chen, Agent Chen's father, personally assumes control of the investigation. The Federal Aviation Administration launches comprehensive audit of Atlantic Airways' civil rights training, hiring practices, and complaint procedures spanning the previous 5 years. From the Atlantic Airways boardroom perspective, Chairman Davidson confronts Chief Executive Officer Harrison via emergency video conference. Michael, explain how our staff discriminated against the most powerful civil rights advocate in aviation. Our insurance explicitly excludes this level of gross negligence. Social media reaches nuclear explosion levels as the hashtag accumulates 50 million impressions across platforms. Hollywood celebrities, politicians, and business leaders share support messages for Marcus. Competitor airlines issue statements supporting civil rights while distancing themselves from Atlantic Airways. Atlantic Airways pilots and flight attendants union issues an unprecedented statement condemning the company's discriminatory culture. Over 200 employees share similar discrimination stories across social platforms, revealing systemic problems beyond this isolated incident. The union threatens industry-wide strike action unless immediate policy changes get implemented, creating additional pressure on Atlantic Airways management. Marcus calls a press conference at O'Hare International Airport, establishing the incident as a comprehensive teaching moment. Today's discrimination reflects systemic problems requiring industry-wide solutions. Meridian Aviation Group will lead comprehensive reform initiative working directly with federal regulators and civil rights organizations. International implications escalate as European Aviation Safety Agency and United Kingdom Civil Aviation Authority announce reviews of Atlantic Airways' international operating certificates. Discrimination against industry leaders raises serious questions about corporate fitness for global operations. Customer exodus begins immediately as Atlantic Airways faces massive booking cancellations. Corporate travel departments of Fortune 500 companies suspend partnership agreements. Travel agents report clients specifically requesting alternative airlines for future bookings. Foster's legal team subpoenas Atlantic Airways' internal communications, training materials, employee complaints, and executive correspondence. Discovery process reveals documented patterns of discriminatory behavior and systematically inadequate training programs. Marcus announces creation of the Williams Civil Rights Initiative, comprehensive aviation industry anti-discrimination program, including mandatory training, independent monitoring, and passenger protection protocols. Atlantic Airways damage assessment estimates total liability exceeding $500 million, including lawsuit settlements, federal fines, lost revenue, regulatory compliance costs, and reputation rehabilitation expenses. Stock analysts downgrade company rating to sell status. Congressional attention intensifies as House Transportation Committee Chairman Representative Maria Gonzalez announces hearings on airline discrimination. Senate leadership tweets support for Marcus, while demanding immediate federal action. Major airlines, United, American, and Delta, issue public statements supporting Marcus while announcing enhanced civil rights training programs. The Industry Association releases statements condemning Atlantic Airways' behavior. Janet Morrison and Rick Coleman receive termination notifications within 24 hours, citing gross misconduct and policy violations. Atlantic Airways' legal department recommends denying severance pay to avoid additional liability exposure. Marcus appears on primetime television news programs, emphasizing systemic reform over personal vindication. This situation transcends my personal experience. It's about ensuring every passenger receives dignity and respect, regardless of race, background, or appearance. Federal Aviation Administration announces Atlantic Airways will face heightened federal oversight, mandatory civil rights compliance monitoring, and potential certificate restrictions. The Department of Transportation initiates industry-wide discrimination review. International business impact accelerates as major corporate clients cancel Atlantic Airways contracts worth hundreds of millions annually. International partners request contract renegotiations, including mandatory civil rights compliance clauses. Shareholder revolt intensifies as institutional investors demand emergency shareholder meetings. Pension funds and socially responsible investment firms divest Atlantic Airways holdings. Stock price continues declining amid bankruptcy speculation. As Atlantic Airways crumbles, Janet faces her own personal reckoning that will end her aviation career forever. Atlantic Airways conducts Janet Morrison's formal termination hearing in Conference Room B. Sterile fluorescent lighting casting harsh shadows across the mahogany table. Legal counsel Hayes chairs the proceeding alongside Human Resources Director Patricia Wong and Union Representative Karen Murphy. Janet arrives with personal attorney David Klein, desperation radiating from her every gesture. Hayes presents video evidence from security cameras, passenger recordings, and Maya's devastating live-streamed footage. Janet's escalating discriminatory behavior gets documented minute by minute, creating an undeniable timeline of civil rights violations. Union Representative Murphy shifts uncomfortably while watching footage, realizing the union cannot defend clearly indefensible behavior. Janet attempts her final defense with increasing desperation. "I followed standard security protocols. I couldn't have known the passenger's identity or importance." Klein argues termination seems excessive for what he characterizes as a judgment error under pressure. Hayes responds with legal precision, "This wasn't judgment error, it was deliberate discrimination, captured on video and witnessed by hundreds." From Janet's perspective, her 20-year career is ending in complete disgrace. She attempts claiming Marcus's calm demeanor seemed suspicious and potentially threatening, immediately recognizing how racist those words sound when spoken aloud. Janet breaks down, crying, begging for a second chance. "I have a family to support. This industry is all I know. Please don't destroy my entire life over one mistake." Murphy reviews the evidence thoroughly before delivering the union's position. The union cannot support behavior that clearly violates civil rights and company policy. "Miss Morrison, you're on your own legally." Hayes explains the termination will include industry blacklist recommendations. "Miss Morrison, your behavior demonstrates unfitness for aviation industry employment. We'll notify industry partners accordingly to protect passenger safety." Janet's complete breakdown reveals the full scope of consequences. She'll never work in aviation again. 20 years of experience rendered worthless. Pension benefits under review. Personal legal liability for civil rights violations mounting. She screams with raw desperation. "He should have identified himself. If I'd known who he was, this never would have happened." The hearing concludes with formal termination for gross misconduct, civil rights violations, bringing the company into disrepute and insubordination. No severance package, immediate surrender of company credentials, and industry blacklist notification. Rick Coleman's separate hearing produces identical results. His attempts to blame Janet fail when security footage shows enthusiastic participation in the discrimination. Union representation gets withdrawn for both employees. Foster's legal team serves Janet and Rick with personal civil rights lawsuit papers, establishing individual liability beyond Atlantic Airways' corporate responsibility. Both face financial ruin from legal fees and potential damages. Local television news interviews Janet outside Atlantic Airways headquarters. Her attempts at explaining her behavior inadvertently reinforce racist motivations, with footage going viral and further destroying her reputation. Personal fallout accelerates as Janet's neighbors recognize her from viral videos. Children at her daughter's school mock the family name. Her husband faces workplace harassment. The family considers relocating to escape social ostracism. Aviation industry databases flag Janet and Rick as discrimination risks, ensuring background checks reveal viral videos. No aviation employer will consider hiring either candidate for any position. Janet's hometown of Naperville distances itself from her behavior through public statements. Local businesses refuse service. Community organizations revoke memberships, creating complete social isolation. Months later, Janet encounters Marcus at O'Hare International Airport during his business travel. She attempts approaching him to offer personal apologies, but Marcus responds professionally and firmly. "Ma'am, please direct any communications through legal counsel." While Janet's career lies in ruins, Marcus's reforms are about to transform the entire aviation industry. 6 months after the O'Hare incident, Marcus announces the comprehensive Williams Civil Rights Initiative at a packed Washington, D.C. press conference. Partnerships with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Anti-Defamation League, and Department of Transportation create revolutionary industry standards. The Federal Aviation Administration adopts Williams standards mandatory. Anti-discrimination training, independent oversight programs, passenger protection protocols, and zero-tolerance enforcement mechanisms. Industry compliance becomes required for maintaining operating certificates. Atlantic Airways undergoes radical transformation under new leadership. The company implements comprehensive diversity training, establishes civil rights officers at every hub, creates passenger advocate programs, and makes public commitments to equality that exceed federal requirements. Major airlines voluntarily exceed federal minimum standards in competitive responses. United announces its Dignity in Flight program with enhanced passenger protections. American introduces dedicated passenger civil rights advocate positions. Delta implements bias interruption training for all customer-facing employees. Marcus partners with aviation universities nationwide to include civil rights curriculum in all aviation management programs. Future industry leaders learn equality principles from their first day of education, creating generational change. Maya, now studying journalism at Northwestern University on scholarship funded by Meridian Aviation Group, continues documenting ongoing industry transformation through social media advocacy. Her original live stream becomes required viewing in civil rights courses. Independent civil rights monitors get stationed at major airports nationwide. Passenger complaint systems receive streamlining with direct federal oversight. Discrimination incidents get tracked and published in quarterly public reports, creating transparency and accountability. The International Civil Aviation Organization considers global implementation of Williams standards after European Union adoption for all airlines operating in European airspace. Marcus's reforms spread beyond American borders, influencing international aviation policy. Airline employees receive comprehensive protection for reporting discrimination through whistleblower programs that encourage civil rights enforcement. Cultural transformation gets measured through anonymous employee surveys showing dramatic improvement. Airports display passenger rights prominently throughout terminals. Mobile applications allow real-time discrimination reporting with direct federal oversight. Educational campaigns teach travelers about civil rights protections and reporting procedures. Success metrics exceed expectations within the first year. Discrimination complaints drop 78% industry-wide. Employee diversity increases significantly across all major airlines. Customer satisfaction scores improve across all demographic categories. Marcus establishes the annual Aviation Civil Rights Summit, bringing together industry leaders, federal regulators, and advocacy organizations. The summit continues pushing for comprehensive equality beyond minimum compliance requirements. Industry publications feature Marcus's reforms as the new standard for corporate social responsibility. Business schools study the incident as exemplary crisis management and transformative change leadership. 2 years later, Marcus receives an unexpected visitor who will test everything he's built. 2 years after the O'Hare incident, Marcus sits in Meridian Aviation Group's Chicago headquarters, reviewing quarterly civil rights compliance reports. Industry-wide discrimination incidents have decreased 82%. Cultural transformation exceeds even his optimistic expectations. His assistant announces an unexpected visitor. "Mr. Williams? There's a Janet Morrison here requesting to see you. She says it's personal business." Marcus pauses, considering refusing the meeting, then agrees to a brief conversation out of curiosity about her transformation. Janet enters his office dramatically changed, humble demeanor replacing previous arrogance, genuine remorse evident in every gesture. She explains her 2-year journey of education, therapy, and community service work. "Mr. Williams, I need to apologize. Not for cameras or courts, but because it's morally right," she begins with obvious emotional difficulty. Marcus listens as Janet describes losing everything, confronting her own racism through painful self-examination and working with civil rights organizations. No excuses offered, just raw accountability. "I was completely, thoroughly wrong about everything." "Ms. Morrison, I appreciate your personal growth journey," Marcus responds thoughtfully. "The real question is, what will you do with these insights moving forward?" Janet explains her current work, teaching anti-discrimination workshops, sharing her story as a cautionary tale for other aviation professionals. Her transformation from perpetrator to educator demonstrates redemption's possibility. Marcus offers a surprising proposal that stuns Janet completely. "If you're serious about change, I have a position available. Director of Bias Education for the Williams Initiative. Your story, properly told, could prevent others from making similar mistakes." Janet, tears flowing freely, accepts the opportunity to rebuild her career through civil rights advocacy. She becomes a powerful voice for change, using her painful experience to educate others about unconscious bias and discrimination. From an industry perspective, airlines report cultural transformation extending far beyond mere compliance requirements. Employees embrace diversity initiatives, passenger satisfaction increases across demographics, and aviation becomes a model for other transportation industries. Maya produces an Emmy-winning documentary titled 45 Minutes That Changed Aviation, featuring interviews with Marcus, Janet, and industry leaders. Her journalism career flourishes, specializing in social justice reporting. Congress passes comprehensive civil rights legislation extending beyond aviation. The Williams Act becomes template for anti-discrimination enforcement across all transportation industries, creating lasting legal precedent. Marcus shares a quiet moment with his wife Clara at their Chicago home, reflecting on the journey's impact. Sometimes, the most powerful changes emerge from the most painful moments. Claire responds with wisdom earned through decades of marriage. You transformed injustice into opportunity for everyone. That's true leadership. Marcus receives the United Nations Human Rights Award for transforming global transportation equality. International aviation organizations adopt Williams standards worldwide, creating unprecedented passenger protections. Business schools studied the incident as exemplary leadership under pressure, strategic crisis response, and transformative change management. Marcus's approach becomes required curriculum for future executives. Chicago O'Hare International Airport dedicates the Williams Civil Rights Terminal, honoring commitment to passenger dignity. The dedication plaque reads, "Where discrimination ends and dignity begins." Marcus boards an aircraft at the same gate where his humiliation occurred 2 years earlier. The flight attendant, a young black woman, greets him warmly. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Billings. Thank you for making this industry better for all of us." As the plane takes off, Marcus reflects on the journey's meaning. Individual acts of courage, properly channeled, can transform entire systems. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about prevention and education. When justice is delayed, make sure it's not denied. Your voice can change everything. So, what would you have done in Marcus Williams' position? When faced with public humiliation and systematic discrimination, would you have chosen silence, confrontation, or strategic transformation like Marcus did? Share your own experiences with discrimination in the comments below. Your stories matter and help others feel less alone in similar struggles. Let's build a community committed to dignity and respect for everyone, regardless of background or appearance. Should airlines face criminal charges for discrimination? Let us know your thoughts. If this story moved you emotionally, here's how to make a real difference. Research civil rights protections in your local area. Support businesses that actively promote equality through their policies and practices. Most importantly, speak up when you witness discrimination. Your voice can change outcomes and protect others. Where are you watching from? We want to feature stories of people who stood up for justice in their communities. Email us your experiences of turning discrimination into positive change. Your courage could inspire millions of others. Want to learn more about civil rights in transportation? We'll link Marcus Williams' actual speeches and the Williams Initiative resources in the description below. Education is the first step toward meaningful change in our society. Stories like this take months to research and produce thoroughly. If you want more content exposing injustice and celebrating those who fight against it, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support makes investigative storytelling possible and helps us reach larger audiences. Next week, we're covering another shocking case. Disabled veteran kicked out of restaurant. What happened next will restore your faith in humanity. It involves a local business owner who thought he could discriminate without consequences, until the veteran revealed his secret identity and connections. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content, extended interviews, and daily civil rights updates. Use #JusticeStories to share your own experiences and connect with our growing community. Support the channel with our new Dignity in Motion merchandise. All proceeds fund civil rights organizations working to prevent discrimination in transportation and other industries. Before you click away, ask yourself, when was the last time you stood up for someone facing unfair treatment? Challenge yourself to be the person who speaks up next time you witness injustice happening around you. Marcus Williams turned 45 minutes of humiliation into decades of positive change for millions of travelers. That's the power each of us holds, to transform pain into purpose, discrimination into dignity, and injustice into lasting reform. Remember, when justice is delayed, make sure it's not denied. Your voice can change everything.